What's good, y'all? I saw a great article on Medium. I love Medium. I write on Medium. I check out articles on there all the time. And this one got me thinking, why are people struggling to sell educational content when educational content is still very profitable? Or maybe it's not. Looked at the questions and some of the concerns that came up that the writer brought up. And I wondered, how are people creating educational content today? Specifically, the content that establishes them as an authority. And is that still profitable? Because at one point, this was the most profitable of all forms of digital products and digital content that was out there. So in today's episode, we're going to get to the bottom of it, because this is one of those areas when it comes to digital products that honestly could be the MVP, the maker or breaker of an entire online business, or at least a business that focuses on digital products as a cornerstone and an important revenue stream. So today we're going to go over educational content. Is it still profitable, and the real pros and cons of it? Let's get it. All right, now, y'all. So you can always profit from your knowledge and skills. I'll never get off of that hill. I'll die on that hill, because skills are, to a sense, just as transferable as knowledge, right? I can train you. I can teach you. I can share my knowledge, provide you, kind of give you on a nice platter, if you will, right? Showcase my skills. I can't necessarily do that with talent. I can't transfer talent. I can only show you my talent. I can only use my talent. I can only profit from my talent. Can't give that to anyone. I can't train that out. And what this article called out to me on Medium, that was a really honest and open situation that the author had gone through. It caught my attention about how there's a significant misunderstanding, right, that people have about educational products and how to push those, or educational content overall, and how to utilize that and how to leverage it. And a lot of times it can leave people with basically a bad taste in their mouth to say, hey, you know what? I put all this effort, time, and energy into something, and I didn't get not even what I wanted back. I didn't get anything back at all. I didn't get anything positive back. And it goes to how a marketing strategy can really help you. But let's first make sure we understand the pros and cons of educational content and how we can leverage our skills and knowledge to whether make, once again, an additional revenue stream, or this is going to be the focus of your entire business. Either way, how to get the most from what you know, and sharing that, teaching that, and of course, ultimately profiting from it. So we'll go over what is educational content and what a true strategy for selling, distributing, building educational content would be. Why doesn't it work for some people, right? Without a strategy, or without this particular strategy, but just any strategy at all. Then we'll go over becoming an authority and what will and will not work to do so. Because if your business overall is going to be, hey, I'm selling my knowledge, my skills, then you want to make sure you're in an authoritative position where people trust what you have to say. So to start, what is educational content? And specifically, what is an educational content strategy? As stated, if your business is going to be your educational content and you have to establish yourself an authority, think of it always from, I need to inspire people. It's not just informing them, it's inspiring them. It's giving them something to aspire to, right? It's giving them, this is what I could do if I follow these steps, or this is what I can achieve if I go through this training and these practices, or if I leverage and use these tools. And the best way to inspire them is of course to first engage with them, connect with them. So educational content is engaging, it's inspiring. Keep those two things as we walk through this. Keep those two elements in your mind as we walk through this, right? Not just informing. It includes informing, but it's not just informing. As I always looked at it from one perspective, this is where coaches come into play, right? Coaches are inspiring. They're empowering. They're uplifting. They're not managing. Whenever I heard people, cross those two, it always bothered me, because I'm like, a coach is not a manager. A coach is not a CEO. A coach can be anybody. See, that title necessarily, their role in the company, doesn't come into play here. A coach can be anybody. Anybody as a fellow team member can be a coach. in helping us get through a particular situation. We see this all the time in sports where you have a team coach, but as we call like the person who maybe they're in a position of, let's say in hockey, the center, or in basketball, the point guard, or in football, the linebacker, or the quarterback, depending upon, if it's offense or defense. They would be like the field commander. They would be the on the field coach, if you will. Motivating people, empowering people, uplifting them, inspiring them. You're going to make this tackle. You're going to get that touchdown. You're going to catch the ball. You're going to get this pass. I'm going to put you in a position where you can make the jump shot. I'm going to put you in a position where you can get the dunk and get the layup. They're empowering their team members. What are you doing with your products and your strategy? Are you ever instilling that inspiration? Are you ever instilling that level of you can get to the next level? You can be better than you were yesterday. You can get to the level that you want to be and that you aspire to be. Now, the content initially, just to grab them, has to capture their attention. And the easiest way to capture attention is to clearly entertain people. And I noticed one of the biggest factors that people fail with educational content, they're not entertaining people. You have to trigger some level of dropping someone's guard, because you think about it. They know they're going to pay something. They know you're going to ask them for some money. They know you're going to ask them for some money. They know you're going to ask them for something in return for whatever the product or service may be. So maybe this is why your content isn't getting past that first initial barrier, because you're immediately coming out with a hard sell, or you're just informing them. You're not entertaining them. You're not engaging them. And you're not inspiring them. Paint that picture for them. And this is why a lot of educational content doesn't work, because you can't inspire someone you don't know who you're talking to. And it could come down to, and this is why I was reading in the article when I was looking this over, I was like, it could come down to you're teaching the wrong people. See, the wrong audience and the wrong offer equals no conversions. It's just that simple. You're offering them something that they don't need, or you're offering them something and they don't understand what the need is because you didn't do the right job, or you didn't do a good enough job to connect the dots for them. Maybe you have the product, maybe you have the content, right? Whatever it be, a course, or it's a webinar, or it's a digital download, or whatever it is, but they don't see how that solves their problem. I see this a lot of time with SEO. I see a lot of times with SEO when it comes to search engine optimization. And what happens is an SEO professional will go over this laundry list, rankings, hashtags, keywords. I mean, just everything you can think of, metadata, and they fail to connect the dot of sales when they're talking to a customer. The client, the business owner, all they care about is, how is this going to get me a sale? Web designers do this too. I think these are the two areas I hear the most, primarily because, of course, that's the areas I work in. But also, this is an area because often from a tech standpoint, it's easier to think about the technical aspects of things and the impact, and not thinking of the business. Had this all the time when I worked with data analysts. And one of my project manager mentors, I would always hear him always say, how's the data telling the story? And the story needs to be, how does this get us more sales? How does this get us more people through the door? How does this actually give us, a bigger shopping cart, right? From a retail perspective. How does this help us on our bottom line? The data has to tell us that story. And more importantly, you as the analyst, or you as the SEO, or you as the web developer have to tell the story. Why does redoing my homepage, how is that going to help anything? What UX, UI elements are holding me back? You can do that with the data, right? We can clearly see the numbers, but I need you to illustrate the story. And this happens a lot of times with educational content. Educational content could be it could be a webinar, it could be a course, it could be a seminar, it can be an infographic, it could be a PowerPoint presentation, it could be any of these things. But if you're not telling the story of how to get to the bottom line of the issue, how it solves the problem, a lot of times that starts off with you're not talking to the right people, or you don't know how to talk to those people. Okay, you're caught, and basically your content just starts to fall flat. It's the wrong audience, or it's the wrong offer, or the communication wasn't tailored to that audience. It can trigger one of those things, but always keep that equation. Wrong audience, wrong offer equals no conversions. So when you're not getting conversions with your educational content, look at that factor. Which one? Am I talking to the right people and giving them the wrong offer? Is it the right offer? And I'm talking to, or I should say, when I say the right offer, meaning that I have a solution in place. I just don't know who this fits to. And this is where a lot of people tend to mess up. If they've worked in an industry for a long time, they have all the skills. And I mean, they're really subject matter experts. They think their solution is best for everybody. So they come up with a solution, but they haven't found the problem. Right? And then they come and find out, no, that solution doesn't work for anybody. You actually have all these other problems that no one has solved for yet. Focus on what's the problem, what's the need, and that audience's need, and then come up with that solution. Next area could be, and why it doesn't work, you're not a designer or you're not a researcher. A lot of people are great at design, don't know how to, don't care for, and don't want to do research, or vice versa. They're great researchers. They can compile a lot of data. They can put a lot of information together, but they can't design it and package it in the right area. This is why teamwork helps so much. This is why teamwork is so important. I have a great team that I've worked on helping and developing to put together, because these guys, like, sometimes I'm like, I have this great idea. I just don't know how to get it out there. I just need, and I'm coming from a designer standpoint. And I still struggle with that, because everybody struggles with it. Everybody's going to struggle with it. And some people struggle with it more because some people just don't have the time to as well. But this could be a key area why that content is not going anywhere. You've put all this great data together. You found all the problems. You found all the issues. You found all the supporting, research you need. Now, how do I present it? How do I articulate it? You need to find a team, or you need to build a team, or you need to find just at least one good team member to help you do that, or vice versa. You can design it, make everything look pretty. You just don't know how to look for the audience. You don't know how to connect with them. This is a great way to not only leverage your skills, once again, skills and knowledge, how to profit from it, right? And building out your network, but also this is an opportunity for you to level up. Because now, okay, if you're working with a great designer and you're a researcher, how did you do this? Can you teach me some tools? Or vice versa. You're the designer, how to do the research. See, some people look at that as an opportunity, like, oh my God, I'm going to get replaced, or I'm going to lose my position. I'm going to lose my, no. Because I've brought this up in multiple episodes. Sometimes people just don't want to do it at all, right? So even if you teach them, you're like, yeah, they're like, oh yeah, that's great. I've done this plenty of times where I've taught somebody how to use Elementor. Was a recent situation. We were going over, their website. They're like, that's great. How much can I pay you to keep doing this? And we went over step by step. That's nice. That's awesome. How much can I pay you to keep doing this? Because I don't want to do this on a regular basis. Maybe I want to do it. Maybe I want to jump in there for one specific opportunity or event or something like that. But I don't want to do this on a monthly basis. I don't want to do this on a weekly basis. Can I pay you for that? If you don't think that's going to happen, it will. It will. I brought this up in an episode before about specifically the people who pay the most are usually the ones who want to do the least. They're like, I got to focus on my area, my work. And that's why your educational content can be a winner. And it's still profitable if you're talking to the right people. Because that person who has to be the CEO, has to be the boss, they don't have the time to get into the weeds and the nitty gritty. To work on every single spreadsheet, to work on every single Gantt chart, to work on every single page of the website. They need somebody to apply it, do it for them. They might come up with a strategy, but they need someone to implement it. And if you have the right presentation, infographic to showcase the steps that are needed, they can look at that like, man, I learned a lot. Now I know I need somebody to handle this for me. and it can be a winning presentation for you, a winning pitch. Also, it could be you are pretending to be something you are not. This is the shot in the foot, as I call it. Teach what you know and teach what you've learned. That doesn't mean you are the subject matter expert. Don't tell someone I can make a website that looks and operates just like Amazon and you don't know jack about coding. Okay? Because if you think you're going to get that from a drag and drop website, it ain't going to happen. But if you tell someone, hey, I know I can build a website, we can make sure it not only has all the metadata that it needs, we can connect it to Google Analytics, Google Search Consoles. Okay, and that's the extent of your knowledge, then that's what you offer. That's what you do. Or that's what you provide content on how to do. Don't go into, okay, now I know how I'm going to save you all this money on your next business tax return. But you don't know jack about accounting. You don't know nothing about the latest in tax law. You're pretending to be something you're not. Never helpful. Not helpful to you, not helpful to anyone, because then people are going to call you out for a fraud. They're not going to give you referrals. They're not going to help you with other business. It's going to be a horrible situation. learn and grow, and teach as you learn and grow. Just that simple. And I mentioned this a few times, and it bothers me to the point of people are not willing to learn. And I'm not talking about from you the perspective of, if you're looking at the consumer's perspective, I'm talking about as the perspective of the producer. Only waste your time. And I do mean this. Only waste your time, right? Because this is going to be a waste of time if you work with somebody who does not want to learn. Spend your time, apply your time. It's actually going to be profitable if you work with people who are willing to grow, and you want to be that kind of a person. If you have a customer talking to you, let's say you have a customer for 12 months, and the same knowledge you had about an industry 12 months ago is you're in the exact same place 12 months later. You're not learning, you're not growing. I'm not going to spend my money with you. I have seen customers leave people because of that. I have seen the opposite. I've seen customers come back to me because they're like, dude, what you did 1 year ago, what you did 2 years ago, what you did 3 years ago, you killing it now compared to what you were doing before. It's the same thing when we see actors, when we see musicians, when we see or directors, anybody we follow on YouTube. If someone's channel looks the same, seriously, if it looks the same from 1 year ago to now, they haven't done anything. They haven't added credits. They haven't changed mics. They haven't, gone from faceless to showing their face, whatever it may be. Are you evolving and adapting and building upon it? And it doesn't mean you have to change everything. You have to change the core values of it, but you want to see it evolve. These are typically the areas of why your educational content isn't going to work if you're not willing to go into these areas. You're teaching the wrong people, or you're focusing on the wrong audience, and you're providing the wrong offer. It's not really of value to them. It's not providing any solutions. So your content falls flat. You are playing outside of your current strength and skill set, and you're not willing to learn and improve on your current strength and skill set, or acquire new strengths and skill sets. These are the areas that typically cripple anyone's attempt to make a real revenue stream out of educational content. Because you know what all of that tells me? If all those things are, unfortunately, if you're hitting all these areas, if you are in this situation or before you get into the situation, this means you're pretending to be something you're not. And that's not good. That's not helpful. That's not educational. So there's nothing for someone to learn from and value. So focus on this first off. Who's my audience? What is an actual solution that they need that I can provide now? And let's make a roadmap. Bringing out that old CX hat, right? But what's that roadmap? Okay, this is what I can provide for them now, and these are the problems now. Now, what can I provide for them in the future? Or I should say, what can I start working on now in developing myself? Certifications, courses, classes, team members. Maybe I'm the designer now. I need to research and I work with someone. Maybe I'm a writer and I need to work with a graphic designer. Maybe I'm a personality. I'm a voiceover artist or something like that, right? And I want to work with a videographer and I want to work with a photographer. Where am I at now? What can I provide now? And what's that roadmap of what I can go on and produce in the future? And then finally, of course, am I willing to put that time in and that effort and energy in to evolve? Educational content strategy, kind of building out those steps, but most importantly, why it doesn't work right now, what people typically have the biggest issue with. When we come back, we're going to go into becoming an authority and what would it take to become an authority, and what will and won't work when it comes to educational content and educational content strategy. Okay, so when we think of educational content and the people who, come top of mind, those are considered authorities. Now, that's not just in educational content. That's in anything, right? There's an authority in every industry, every segment, every sector. An authority, basically a person that if they speak, a lot of people listen. Now, we would consider that also an influencer standpoint, but it's more so authoritative in that we trust what they have to say, in that not necessarily we're going to buy products, but their commentary, their analysis of a situation or a specific subject. From the influencer standpoint is usually when you hear people say things like, okay, they're pushing a product or something. A lot of times authorities, they're not pushing necessarily a product, right? But in educational content where you are trying to profit from your knowledge, then of course is what you want to be. You want to be in this position. Now, I can give you a ton of names, but names that most likely, especially keeping it with business and marketing, like let's just stay within that area, because this can be in any industry. People like Tim Ferriss, right? People like Pat Flynn, Gary Vee, Seth Godin, Neil Patel, Larry Kim. And I mean, there's a ton more, but if you want to get into specific platforms, let's say YouTube, Sean Cannell and the people that over at Think Media, when you think of things like that, like you notice how I broke that down and then I went to a very specific platform. That's once again going back to the audience. Like if I were to say, okay, I want to learn about SEO. Well, if I want to talk about SEO, then it's typically going to be one of two people. I'm going to go to Rand Fishkin, right? One of the co-founders of Moz, literally one of the top, platforms to not only learn about search engine optimization, but to get certifications and training and a tool for search engine optimization. If I'm learning about things like outsourcing or working with white label services, Tim Ferriss, of course, because he came up not only as an author about it, but he literally built businesses from that specifically. You can go into so many different areas and get down to specific areas. You want to talk about organization and cultural change. Simon Sinek, that would be an authority, but the authority that clearly has had that time, effort, energy put into it and put the work in, but also produces a ton of educational content on, not only how to do it yourself, but that you can consume and you can become part of trainings. You can become part of, whether it be seminars, webinars, and speaking engagements. That's the point about knowing what the audience wants, who the audience is. It can get down to the very platform, or it could just be within an overall industry. So video marketing, yeah, Think Media is great, but they talk and they focus a lot more on YouTube. So really, when I'm talking about YouTube, that's one of those authorities you're usually talking and speaking of. But the biggest thing, like I mentioned, is to get people engaged, to entertain them. How is that educational content working for you, right? Is it actually engaging people? Is it actually getting people to say, you know what? I see what I could be when I'm finished this video. I see what I could get done and what I could produce when I finish reading this infographic or when I finish reading that ebook. Now, there's some fantastic platforms to just get at least video engagement out there. Of course, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. There's even SlideShare, right? There's tons of platforms out there to work with. When you want to release a course, you have Udemy, Kajabi, Skillshare. These also will put you in an authoritative position as you release trainings. But once again, focusing on where you are right now with your knowledge and your skill set doesn't mean, okay, now I have to wait till I get 5 degrees, a certification, and 2 pit bull puppies. Bad dad joke, I know. But you don't have to wait until you have all of this other acquired, certifications, knowledge, and credentials. What do you know right now? Because I can guarantee you there's an audience that doesn't know what you know right now, but they want to get to that level. This is why it's important to know your audience. I'm not going to speak to a room of, veteran CEOs about how to start a business. That doesn't make sense. Like the saying goes, read the room. Right? You're not going to come to them and you're going to say, well, you know what? When you're starting your first business, dude, we were running Fortune 500 companies. Some of us have been in these positions maybe for 10 years, or we've been CEOs at least for 10 to 15 years with different corporations. What do you mean if I'm starting my first business? Now, maybe if you're telling a story of how it relates and impacts that CEO, maybe, and that's a big maybe, but you're quickly going to start losing people. Vice versa. I'm not going to have a discussion about what to do with your, $10 million in the bank to invest in your business to a bunch of people who just lost their jobs, trying to start a business from scratch, and maybe only have a couple of hundred, maybe 1,000, 1,500, whatever, to invest in a business. Read the freaking room. And I'm serious about that. Read the room. Know who you're talking to, because this is when it starts to fall flat. What I am going to have a conversation with is the people who just lost their job, or the people who are thinking about leaving their job. Here's a big one. People thinking about leaving their job and starting a business. What actions to take with your current savings? What actions to take in building out a budget when you know you're about to go from paycheck to, I don't know how soon this money is going to come in, how to bring in those first clients. It's the conversation you need to have. Now, that's the information, but the inspiration, what they're aspiring to be, When this business is now taking care of my kids going to college, when this business is now providing for premium insurance for my family, when this business is now able to purchase that new home or pay off my current home, pay off all my debt, that's the aspiration. See what I'm saying? You have to know the audience, and that will help you become that authority because you are tailoring that message to that audience. Because you're tailoring that message to that audience. That's how you become that authority. So make sure it's entertaining and engaging. Where do they go to be entertained? Where do they go to consume information? Go where they are. Not where you want to be, go where they are. Get in front of them and make sure you're meeting them where they're at, not only from a distribution platform standpoint, but also from a knowledge standpoint. You're not speaking over their head, but you're helping them build that vision. And you use the platform that best conveys that message. Video is powerful. Can't deny that. But yes, you should be putting out some infographics. Yes, you should putting out blog posts where your information can be consumed. Because once again, if you know the audience, you know them. Yeah, they're most likely going to download a white paper, or they're most likely going to read a few blog articles. But maybe the blog articles need to be short, 2 to 3 minutes, 5 minutes tops. Maybe the videos need to be short. That's why TikTok and shorts work best. But I have a few long forms, and the only long form is my webinar. The only long form are my courses. This will help establish you as authority, which goes into what will work, what won't work. So what works, once again, visuals, show and tell. Show me. Don't just tell me. Show me the way. You want them to build the vision. And sometimes building that vision in their own brains means they need to see something already. They need to have a visual to work with. Create for the audience first and foremost. The blogs, the vlogs, the social media. Don't just go in for the immediate sale. You're sharing the knowledge and the information in an entertaining and engaging way, but specifically where they want to consume it. So maybe it's vlogging. Maybe it is blogging. Some people just still want to go to blogs. I know tons of people who still do blogs, and that's the reason why I still blog, is because that's more the networking of people I'm around. But that doesn't mean that's for everybody. But I cater to that audience because that's my audience. Test it out, though. I would always suggest testing out. Do something long form, do something short form, and see which one goes the farthest. And when I say goes the farthest, not just in traction and traffic, I mean in also conversion. So people are coming back to your website, or people are downloading whatever you were talking about downloading, or people, you want a conversion. You want a marker of success at all times. You always want a marker of success. So continue to test and continue to and repeat and test. But be consistent. Make a schedule that works for you. Because this is the thing, these are the things that will work. Make a schedule that works for you based on your time, based on your workload. That's consistency. It's funny when people say consistency, they're like, oh, you got to be consistent. People think, oh, that means daily, hourly. No, that means, okay, I'm going to release this every Thursday. It's coming out every Thursday. That's consistent. We have a new episode every month. Comes out every month. That's consistent. We have a new newsletter every 3 months. It comes out every 3 months. That's consistent. But keep in mind, you're making a promise to that audience. This is where people tend to fail with educational content too. They fall off on their promises, and they don't know it's an implied promise. If I go to your post, or better yet, this is why I think a lot of YouTube channels fail. And I don't see enough research about it. I would love to check this out. I'd love to find out more one day. People make a video. It doesn't get like 1 million views, but it gets maybe a few thousand within a few minutes. People are watching it. People are sharing it. People are consuming it. I've seen this a couple times. And I saw a video with, I think it was about like maybe 15, 20,000 views, and literally within one day for a channel that had just started. That's great, actually. Fantastic. So that person did something right. You know when they released their next video? About 2 weeks later. Okay. It wasn't a long video. It was about 30 minutes, but it was still, a lot of work in there. So maybe they don't. But then when did the next video come out? I promise you, this threw me for a loop. The next video didn't come out to almost and I seriously have to, thinking back on it, I wish I could find it. If I could find it, well, I'm not going to share it. I was going to say I can share it, but I want to say it was almost 4 months later. So remember, I said the first video came out, did really well. 2 weeks later, they came out with another video about the same length, similar topic, or, similar, had the same theme. But the next one wasn't until almost 4 months later. And after that, I never went back to the channel. So I don't know. I honestly don't know. Because it wasn't any form of, I was like, okay, you went from 2 weeks to 4 months. What just happened? No explanation, no nothing. And don't get me wrong, they don't owe necessarily the audience a full explanation of what happened in life. But at the same time, keep in mind, when you produce content, you're making a promise to that audience. You're making a promise to that audience because you want them to consume what you produce. So if you want them to consume what you produce, you have to hold up your end of the bargain. They're giving you their time. They're never getting that back. You're listening to this podcast, you're not getting that time back. So I have to make sure what I'm giving you is valuable to you, right? Exactly. So when you produce your educational content, the same thing. You have to make sure it's valuable to that audience and that you're holding up your end of the bargain. So I tell you, new episodes of the Ambitious Show podcast come out every Thursday. Catch us on Podbean, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Yeah. That is not a shameless plug. That was educational content. Yeah. Anyway, what doesn't work? Well, I start off with not being consistent. Yes, I laugh at my own jokes. Not being consistent. This is the worst one. This is the one that hurts the most. And this hurts educational content more than anything. It will hurt any other kind of content in your focus. But the most impact is educational content. Focusing on monetization first. What I mean by is, okay, if you want this webinar, you gotta pay $10 to attend. And yes, $10. I know that's low, and that's the whole point. Because I don't know you. Why am I giving you my $10? Or you pay $199 right now. It's a simple digital download. It's not, not expensive at all. $199, it's a throwaway. I don't know you. You haven't proven anything to me. Why am I giving you $199? Whether it's $1.99, it's $199, doesn't matter to me. That's the consumer standpoint. See, what did I just said about the podcast, right? Your time is being taken. Technically, you're giving me your time by listening to this, and I appreciate that. I have to give you something valuable for that because you're not getting that time back. Now, some people look at their money more valuable than their time, and that's up to them. That's completely up to them, of course. To me, my time is the most valuable. So the time I'm taking to produce this, I'm taking time to research it, do it right. That way it's done well for you as best as possible. If you have feedback, you can change it, please, of course, drop us an email, drop a comment. Always happy to hear. And that's the point. I value it. So I'm going to take the time to read those things, listen to those things, look at that email and improve. Change what needs to be changed. Work it out. Bring in something new, whatever it may be. If you're immediately saying, hey, here's a course for $29.99. I've never produced anything, no infographics, not even social media posts to tell you what I do. Not even that. And of course, I didn't tailor it to you and your needs and what solutions you're looking for. Then why should I spend any money on it? Focusing on monetization first. I can understand you put your time in, you put your skill in, you have worked. And here's that big old bubble about to be bust. As a consumer, that's not my problem. That is not my issue. That's not my concern. My concern is, what are you giving me valuable right now that I can use? You want my $25? You want my $100? You want my $1,000? You want whatever? And that's exactly the position we're in. The second area, final area, being in too many places at first. I always say A/B test. If you're in multiple marketplaces, if you're in one marketplace to start off, no, you should be in two. See which one works best for you. Same thing with your content. Same thing with your educational content. Same thing with your social media content. If you know the audience, you know where the audience is. So test it out. When I first started the agency, first thing we had was a like page. We had Instagram. We were on LinkedIn. Made sense to be in those places. Surprisingly, we were getting more traction. And this is at the time, it shows you how long I've been doing this. Surprisingly, we were getting more traction on LinkedIn and Facebook. So I didn't even worry about Instagram, but I still posted to Instagram because I knew people were there. And I was like, hey, let's at least make sure we're sharing out whatever we produce, new stuff, and it goes there. And that's the smart thing to do, right? We never gave up on it completely, but we say, hey, this is not going to be our primary focus. So we have secondary. So I always say have your primary, your secondary, and maybe third. And that's kind of the area where it's kind of more of a repository. It's more of a place for people to, it's great for backlinks for search engine optimization, but it's also just a place to say, hey, well, people see that you're in different places. But you don't want to say, okay, well, there's 50 social media platforms, so I need to be on all 50. I would say always secure your name and your brand, but you don't have to be as active. I know some people might not like that, but here's the thing about it. In the world we are now, we have to be honest. We have to protect our business, especially if we're putting money and investing into it. So get your name, grab your tag, hold it there. Post up information about your business, make sure it's accurate, and leave it there. Right? With all the platforms out here now, you can do automated scheduling, and it's easy, just kind of a throwaway. But you do want to have a primary and secondary at least. But you don't have to be everywhere active at all times, because then that message has to change. Because the message on TikTok is not going to match the same thing you're doing on Instagram, on Snapchat, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Quora, on Pinterest. You notice all the platforms I just mentioned? Can you imagine trying to put this, and people do this. This is why some schedulers you do have to be careful with, but people do this all the time. Don't try to put that same exact post on every single platform. It does not look right. And it does, because it's not native to that. It's not designed for that. So what works? Show more than you tell. Create the audience first. Build a relationship. Showcase value. Educate and inform in an engaging and entertaining way. But be consistent. Be very consistent. Stick to your own schedule and uphold your promise. Keep on learning and sharing as you learn. What doesn't work? Trying to get paid right out the bat for every little thing. Focus on monetization. Focus on producing good content first and foremost. Good quality content comes down to the value that it brings to the consumer. Remember, the value, when people say valuable content or quality content, it's the value that the consumer sees in it. And then don't worry about being in too many places. Focus on what works and where it works. Protect your name and brand across as many channels as you can, but put the time and energy into one primary and one or two, maybe two secondaries when it comes to platforms and social media platforms, where you should be and where you should be connecting with your audiences. When we come back, we'll go into, of course, we got to have them. We got to have what to read when we come back. All right, now, y'all. So just a quick recap. Keep in mind, educational content can be especially powerful for generating brand awareness. Okay, so like I said, don't focus on monetization at first. And there are actually ad campaigns that are optimized, as they say, in most platforms for brand awareness. Educational content does this. So if you produce some really good educational content, want to put additional dollars and money behind it, run a small ad campaign. This is where having two channels, two platforms. So maybe one's on LinkedIn, the other one's Facebook, maybe, or Meta, I should say, across all of Meta platforms. One's maybe Meta, and the other one's YouTube or all of Google platforms. And you use that educational content in that advertising to see who bites. Are you speaking to the right people? Are you giving them the right offer? And this is where a digital product really comes into play, because you use it as a lead magnet. So maybe it's a white paper. Maybe it's an infographic. Maybe it's a checklist. I would always suggest, if it's the first time you're doing it, make it something that people can easily consume and use. Easily consume and use. So in a platform, they don't have to download. They don't have to do a demo. It's something that they use already. Canva, Excel, Google Sheets, Google Docs, maybe even Photoshop, PDF, something like that. But they use, and the reason why they use it is because it's just like anything else, right? When you're in school, you write down your notes. You remember the notes more. You remember them better. Just like, when they show your work in math class, things like that. I mean, you have to get, it's educational content, right? Think of school. You wrote down the problem. You built out the problem. You worked out the problem, and the teacher wanted to see you do that because it's easier for you to retain that information. So something they use they don't have to pay for. You paid for it. Technically, you paid to make it and you pay for the ad. But that's a great way to build brand awareness. So if you're going to do a brand awareness campaign, great way to do it. And as always, suggest if you're going to do this, you want to lead them back to your website. Not necessarily a third party marketplace, something like that. You want to lead them back to your website. Funny enough, what to read today is actually a blog article from one of the best contributors on the blog. Now, the blog is the blog for Shopify, and literally is what are digital products and the top digital products of 2025. I'm recommending this article though, because he goes into, and I'm sorry, Braven Kumar is the author. He goes in depth about that digital product. Just because it's digital doesn't mean it can't be super impactful. And they can also be used as lead generation tools, and they can also come back and be premium tools or premium products, in other words, paid for products. And that's a great way to look at your educational content. Maybe you're doing a free webinar, maybe it's a 10-minute, 15-minute webinar, something really tight, concise, gets to the point, but it's not as in depth as a full training or a course. So you take that same component, you take the components, you take the elements of that webinar and you put them into a course, right? A full form course where somebody comes out with something of a level of achievement, not just a certification or certificate, but maybe they come out with other products that you've developed for it. And that's the value to it. He goes into things like that. And it's a really great article about digital products. Man, I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I had to give the brother credit on this one. This is something I wrote, but Shopify didn't ask me to write it. So, it's okay. I'm not taking it personal. Not taking it personal. I like Kumar's stuff. I've seen some of his other pieces. But when I got to the point of website is because Shopify, I always bring this up about Shopify. It is dedicated to e-commerce. That's why I appreciate and respect and like Shopify for e-commerce sites. Even if it's your first one, because I will say it's a slight learning curve sometimes with some of its tools. They do have that low code, no code factor going into play, which helps out a great deal of, first time website owners and first time business owners with an e-commerce platform. Although they have that into place, it can still be a little challenging. It's not as easy as some other builders and drag and drop sites. So they have a robust, and I always say this, I only recommend those places that give you a lot of tools to help you learn. Not just say, hey, shut up, buy this and use this. I'm not down with that. I'm down with, yes, I'm going to put my money into it, but you're going to give me the tools I need to get the most out of whatever I'm paying, right, per month or whatever it may be for my package. So Braven has a great article here. There's tons of great articles in the Shopify blog, but this one specifically about goes into digital products and, of course, the educational content specifically and how you can leverage it. A fantastic article. Let me know what you think. It's a great crash course and everything. I would love to know what you think about this article, because this is the first time I've ever recommended an article from one of the sites and platforms that I use the most, besides, where we got the article that inspired this episode. And in fact, there's a link to that article as well. So you can check it out and you can, let me know what you think. And what do you think are those obstacles that certain people face with educational content? Maybe some of the same obstacles you're facing. Maybe you have some ideas of how to overcome it on top of what we went over today. And of course, it's an opportunity to join Medium. If you do, join Medium, I would love to know if you start writing on Medium or if you're just reading on Medium. I write on Medium every week and post up there all the time. It's one of the first places I put blog posts. So check it out. So with that is what to read. Like I said, wanted to make sure it's something that not only aligns with what we're talking about, but something, of course, as always, that you can immediately apply. So he goes into digital products, educational products, tie that with what you got here of what works, what doesn't work when it comes to educational content, and how you can leverage educational content, right? So who's that audience? What are their needs? What kind of offer can you provide? And that offer doesn't have to be monetized off the bat. Remember, the offer can be just, hey, you know what? I'm making this webinar. Go to my landing page, sign up for my webinar. Great. But here is, even if you don't attend the webinar, here is a white paper, or here is a newsletter, or here is a, so on and so forth. Because there's many ways to monetize it once you have the attention, but once you provide value. You have to provide value first. Focus on that. So with that, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of The Ambition Show. I've been your host, Aaron Muhammad. Best to you and yours. Peace.